It is the Sports Fix here on Flow FM, and let's head stateside now and have a look at the NBA to start with. Jeremy Wohlfart joins us on the line to help us go through it. Jeremy, how are you, mate?
Good. Always a pleasure to be here.
Good to have you back on the program, and we're going to go all the way back in the NBA a couple of days. There's been a lot of games played since Saturday, but I've got to make mention of a couple of things. First of all, here come the Celtics. And here come the Charlotte Hornets.
It's been some really good games played by both teams. They're starting to get some wins on the trot. Hornets finally looking like they're starting to gel. They've had some really good wins over some tough opposition like the Grizzlies, the Warriors, and the Knicks. And, well, I think the Celtics are always a bit better than they showed early on, so it's good to see them going up the ladder a bit.
Well, that's true. They did drop one to the Cavs that they should have won, the Celtics. But, gee whiz, your boys, to back up within 48 hours to beat the Knicks. And then a game I believe you've been watching on repeat. You can correct me if I'm wrong here, against the Warriors, where you beat them by 4 points. They're pretty good back-to-back wins.
Oh, yeah, that game is pretty much on a loop in my house at the moment. It's really good to watch if you're a Hornets fan. It just speaks to the potential that I think the Hornets have, which I don't think is something we've had a ton of before. We had Mitch Kupchak come in to be our general manager, and we're seeing, LaMelo is, of course, the big money sort of, everyone eyes on him, but then you look at the other players, you got Miles Bridges having a breakout season, Gordon Hayward, he still can get that ball in the bucket, and Terry Rozier is a very good partner to ball in the backcourt. So if we get a center, just a proper floor-stretching center, there we go, I think we could really make some waves in the playoffs if we can get to that point.
Well, you're certainly making some waves now. We'll come back to the East in a tick, but just a quick look at the West. That Warriors team, that's only their second loss of the year, so they're still on top of the pops. But the big movers in the last week or so have probably been the Jazz. They're flying at the moment. So, and the Suns are just keeping on. They're there and thereabouts. But the Utah Jazz, a couple of big wins, up to fourth in the West. They're looming large.
They are, and they're one of those teams that are just very well coached. And, they have star players, of course. They've got Donovan Mitchell, an all-star. You've got Mike Conley next to him. And he's not the point guard he once was, but he was once probably the most underrated player in the league. Rudy Gobert is a double-double machine, and Bogdanovic, of course, he's always good fun to watch. Very much a very good starting five. So, they'll continue to win. Whether or not they'll make a run is another matter with the likes of, the Warriors and the Suns. But, they'll certainly be at the pointy end come playoff time.
I guess the big surprise in the East, and there's a few of them, but if I'd told you at the start of the season that the Wizards and the Bulls would be 1 and 2 on the ladder after 13 or 14 games, I would have been laughed out of here. But that's the reality. The Wizards and the Bulls are playing, champagne basketball right now.
Yeah, I think with the Wizards, it really talks to how Bradley Beal has just sort of come out of his shell. And, he's currently out of the lineup just nursing an injury, but they still got some really good players like Dinwiddie. Kuzma has had a very good year out in the East, and Harrell, of course, coming off the bench. They've got a lot more talent than I think people probably gave them credit for preseason, and that includes myself. I didn't really think they would be anywhere close to where they've been so far, but, results don't lie, and they're getting the results currently.
Well, they are. The Cavs in fifth, they've surprised a few as well. I think the shocking scoreline was the recent Bulls-Lakers game. I don't think any of us saw this margin coming. The Bulls 121, the Lakers 103, and it was a former Laker who tore the Lakers apart.
Yeah, and if there's a most improved category, there are quite a few, but Lonzo Ball, he's really improved his game just every year. It's easy to forget sometimes just how mocked he was as a shooter coming in with that very unorthodox action. He wasn't really good shooting from behind the arc, so he's just worked at it every year, and he's turned into a really legit, not just a pass first point guard, but really a threat at all levels of the court. And DeMar DeRozan, he's turned back the clock. He looks a lot better than he was in the last few seasons. You got Zach Levine there. So, there's just a lot of talent with Chicago. It's just probably much more than I gave them credit for. I was really skeptical of teams that just try to purchase the off-season, as it were, but it's working for them. And again, results don't lie. And, to crush the Lakers, to be up 21 at the end of the third. And, that's just the sort of results that we're seeing from them this year.
Yeah, junk time came early in that game. It might only read 18 points, but it was a bigger win than that. Look, I think the other point we have to make here about what's happening in that division in the East is where the Nets are. They've had a few opportunities to really top this division, and Patty Mills has been playing some brilliant basketball. They went down to the Warriors yesterday, but they've been thereabouts. They've had the opportunity to go to the top. I think eventually they'll get there, but just slipping over on a few occasions against teams that you wouldn't expect them to.
Yeah, that's true. And the East is just in general. I mean, the Nets are probably the best place of the teams that were really fancies in the preseason. We've seen other teams like the Bucks struggle to begin with, but I think it speaks, to the improvement of a lot of teams, especially coming out from the East. We spoke about the Wizards, the Bulls, the Cavs, the Hornets, etc. It's probably too early to say there's a changing of the guard, but I think the Nets, they'll still be in the top four, I think, come playoff time, but they certainly don't have the stranglehold they want. And, I think a lot will depend on whether or not Kyrie Irving does end up playing this season, which, right now, probably not, but you never know what's around the corner. But it's certainly an interesting conference, that's for sure.
Plenty going on in the NBA at the moment. Jeremy, obviously the Ben Simmons sideshow continues on. Josh Giddey still plying his trade over there. We'll talk more about the Australians next week here on the Sports Fix when we wrap up what's been a big week in NBA action. Enjoy the week ahead, mate. Good luck to your Charlotte Hornets, and we'll catch you again next week.
No worries. Thanks for having me.